The woman assured her son that he was free to toy with his future wife as he pleased until he grew bored with her. The heroine was baffled as she was being suddenly objectified by her mother-in-law. She found it scandalous to hear a mother tell her 10-year-old such things as he may play with his wife now, but later in the future, he may toy with his parents, which is exactly what happened in the original plot of the novel. Our protagonist had reincarnated into Cheria Mayol, a character in the novel. The villainess hates anything but the money road, the younger sister of the heroine, Muria. Unlike the eldest daughter of the Count, who was blessed with divine powers that benefited her household, the younger sister was deemed frail and useless. Thus, the parents sold their 10-year-old outcast to a ducal household on the same day their golden child was crowned saintess at the temple, and all for a small amount of coins at that. Our protagonist, Cheria Mayol, was now in the house of her buyer, with the Duchess claiming that they should hurry as the seller was eager to receive his money. The Duchess then turned to the little girl with a dark glare in her eyes and urged her not to make her regret buying her, before finally leaving her in an immense room. The protagonist began to pity her luck, as it seems that neither her parents nor her in-laws like her. She was even baffled, like, even if she's possessing someone else's body, how could she end up in a situation like this? If she had been in possession earlier, she might have at least struggled a little bit to avoid being sold. Cheria Mayol found herself unlucky to possess someone just a single day before being sold off. During her first moments in this new world, she was fiercely grabbed by her hair while being asked if she had finally gone mad. This is because Cheria wondered if her being sold off was a dream, but her sister Muria said that her thoughts didn't matter, as it would not change her fate of being sold off into a snake's den tomorrow. The villainess, who was perfectly described by the novel's title, told Cheria to rejoice, as for the first time in her useless life, she would bring money into their household. And as she was thinking her situation through, she was suddenly snapped back to reality by a small voice apologizing. The boy felt sorry for the girl, as she was to become his wife. A pure innocent look filled the eyes of the little child. Our heroine had almost forgotten who she was to be wed to. The boy's name was Kibrin Nektarian, the psychopathic villain of the story, who was fated to become a bloodthirsty monster upon becoming an adult. Due to the snake scales and the sorcery engraved on his body from birth, the little one was labeled as a monster and banished to a remote mansion owned by his family. After coming of age, the young man would lust for vengeance and murder his parents in cold blood, as well as his wife Cheria. The protagonist began to pity herself as she had a trashy sister and a husband who was fated to become a deranged murderer. Even so, she decided to reassure Kibrin by claiming that his family had saved her from a much worse fate, stating that the Count might have thrown her into a house with no roof. Cheria Mayol was convinced that she could raise her future husband into a good person, seeing how adorable he seemed. She then affirmed to the boy that they should try to become good friends, given that they were both disliked by their parents. Despite knowing that this task would be difficult and unusual, she was convinced that success wasn't impossible. Thus, she asked the boy to show her to the room that they would be sharing from now on. A little later, while walking down the hallway, Kibrin seemed to have something to say, and despite being hesitant at first, he asked his lady if she would like to be relieved of her baggage. She immediately gave it to him. His face was illuminated by a wide smile as he stated that he would take good care of it. Cheria Mayol, who couldn't help but find the personality of her future husband cute, urged him not to run with his long bangs, as he may trip, only for him to claim that they don't get in the way of him seeing, so he would be fine. Night had fallen, and they both had arrived at their room. The protagonist was quite shocked, as she didn't expect it to be this big. She also found that this chamber wasn't designed for a little boy, as its windows don't open. This left the heroine horrified, as she assumed that Kibrin was to be confined until his coming of age. She then looked at the bed and asked him if the bed sheets were changed regularly, only for him to deny. Cheria was surprised as the groom claimed that no one enters his chamber. And as she pointed out how unusually clean the sheets were, Kibrin revealed that he doesn't use the bed, leaving her quite confused. As the boy pointed to where he sleeps, his future wife was left baffled, as he was certain to catch a cold if he slept there. Yet upon hearing him claim that it was too big, she immediately realized that the little boy was scared to sleep alone in a bed big enough for 10 of him. This made the heroine let out a soft smile before stating that they would be sleeping together from now on. This shocked the young prisoner, who asked our heroine for the reason behind this kindness towards him. Cheria Mayol had a hard time explaining that they were family from now on and should help each other, before affirming to the boy that he could repay her in the future. She then smiled at him brightly, while claiming that they shall forever be next to each other from now on. Thus, she invited him next to her, and despite being hesitant at first, the little boy accepted the invitation. Cheria Mayol then stated that he shouldn't be scared anymore, as they were now sleeping next to each other. And as he asked her about what he should call her, the heroine realized that she still hadn't introduced herself. So she immediately presented herself as Cheria Mayol. As Kibrin was stuttering her name, the protagonist replied to him with an honest smile while claiming that she was excited to spend her days with him. With that, the heroine's mind was settled on turning the future monster into a proper man, she was determined to remain alive next to a sane husband to whom she would offer a bright future. The sun had risen. Cheria Mayol rushed to wake up the Kibrin. With a cheerful smile on her face, the heroine proposed to start their second day together with breakfast. A little later, despite her best efforts, the adult heroine in a childlike body was unable to reach the food. She was intrigued by the fact that this mansion didn't have a cook and that all the food was placed so high. As a person of the modern world, the heroine found it scandalous that this 10-year-old, who was worried that she would fall, was living in isolation while being malnourished. Cheria began to think of a plan, as reaching the ingredients was their only way to secure food. Only then did she spot a stick. This gave her an idea. Cheria grabbed the stick and asked Kibrin to catch the food as soon as she made it fall. In order to ease his task, the heroine handed him a large cloth. Now fully geared up, the children were finally ready to tackle their enemy. With that, as soon as Cheria unleashed her attack, her partner successfully captured the goods. After taking a good look at their loot, the girl claimed that she could cook up a delicious stew after getting meat. Now came the time to prepare the meal. As soon as the heroine grabbed the knife, she realized that her hands were too small for it. Even so, the protagonist tried to do her best as the boy watched in silence. Seeing this, he proposed to peel the potato in her place, and when asked if he had any experience in cooking, the boy affirmed that he didn't, but was certain that he wouldn't be as bad as her. It was a sad reality for our protagonist that her terrible cooking skills, which mainly caused disasters, had followed her to this world. Thus, Cheria allowed Kibrin to peel the potatoes instead, and just like that, the 10-year-old boy managed to do a better job than our protagonist. The girl then asked the boy about what he used to eat before her arrival. Kibrin suddenly felt uneasy. In the end, he refused to answer the question, claiming that the girl would be disgusted if she ever knew the truth. Seeing this, our heroine decided not to press him any further. With that, the two of them decided to focus on preparing the meal, and so after many efforts, the stew was finally ready. Upon tasting it, Cheria found it rather disgusting, as it lacked flavor. But seeing how the boy found it exquisite, she was baffled and began to wonder about what he used to eat to like this soup. Kibrin claimed that the soup was more enjoyable in the presence of Cheria. And so, as the little boy kept on enjoying his meal, she couldn't help but stare at his scales. She found it rather odd that he kept rubbing them at night. After realizing that the girl was looking at him, Kibrin felt embarrassed, so he asked her if she was looking at him because she found him creepy, only for her to claim him to be adorable. The heroine then explained to the shocked boy that she wanted him to eat plenty so he could become taller than her. But upon hearing him claim that he likes it when he is the shorter one, she stated that they needed to grow together. And so, later on that day, Cheria began to write a list of what they needed. She wrote that she needed new dresses, as those that are currently present were too heavy. It was impossible for the little girl to wear the dress filled with jewels on her own without help. As the boy pointed out that her writing looked like worm drawings, she claimed that it was hard for her to write with this pen. After looking around, Cheria discovered that even the windows of the study room were locked. This place was a prison of gold that deprived the little boy of the sunlight that was crucial for his growth. Suddenly, a bell began to ring. The boy began to panic, as this sound meant that someone would be entering his domain soon. Seeing how Kibrin wanted to go hide, the protagonist refused and offered to go with him. Cheria insisted on helping him out, and with that, he finally gave her his hand. Shortly after, the two of them rushed to the entrance. 3 maids arrived at the scene, annoyed by the fact that they needed to clean this creepy place as well. One of them pointed out that the lady of the house had sent dresses to this place, as another one proposed to steal some jewels from them. They couldn't care less about being discovered, seeing how the young master was treated as a monstrous outcast. Upon hearing this, the protagonist was filled with anger. Yet she decided to seize the opportunity and claimed to Kibrin that this was their chance to go outside. Yet the boys seemed hesitant. Seeing this, she realized that he must have been strictly forbidden to set foot outside. Thus, she decided to reassure him by affirming that they would be exiting the mansion together. And so, as she claimed that he would be totally safe, Kibrin finally agreed to go out with her. And with that, the protagonist rushed to exit this place with the boy while asking him to have faith in her. Shortly after, the protagonist began to quickly scan the room. The exit was wide open. The servants were out of the way. And seeing how there was only one knight with a carriage guarding the exit, Cheria labeled this the perfect opportunity to escape. Upon seeing the 2 children step outside of the mansion, the knight urged them to return inside. Cheria and Kibrin were both anxious. Yet it wasn't hard to tell for our protagonist that this young man was newly appointed to his position. The relatively new uniform that he was wearing confirmed her assumption further. The girl then decided to hand him the list of the items that they needed, only for the knight to claim that it would be best if she gave it to the maids. Cheria stated that these males were untrustworthy jewel thieves, yet the knight had a hard time believing this, as it was the Duchess who had personally selected them. With that, she accused him of treating her like cord. The knight was shocked by what he had heard, so he decided to personally go and check on the maids, as the protagonist asked him to stay nearby. And so as he went inside, the children were free to do whatever they pleased. Only then did she notice that the mansion she and the boy were trapped in was far too magnificent to be called the Snake's Den. Seeing how his child was born with skills on his skin and a weird mark on his back, the Duke decided to have the mark examined, only for it to turn out to be a powerful sealing spell. This sophisticated seal fights all odds by appearing suddenly on an unborn child. As the news got public, the people began to spread rumors regarding the child being a dark serpent cast away by the gods and imprisoned in human flesh. In the end, even the parents of the child were influenced by the rumor and trapped him in his own mansion. That became known as the Serpent's Den on his 9th birthday. With that, Cheria began to wonder how long it had been since this child had touched grass and laid eyes on the sun. With that being said, she asked him to profit from the outside as much as possible. But to her shock, the boy claimed that he already had his fill of fun. Kibrin declared that the blooming flowers and tender nature pale in comparison to his dear Cheria. He stated that her silky hair reminded him of the first light of the sun. The flustered protagonist didn't expect this surprising compliment and happily thanked the young master for it. With that being said, the two of them decided to enjoy the pleasures of nature. When suddenly screams were heard, the maid claimed that she didn't do anything while throwing herself at the feet of the nobles. The knight explains that the stolen jewels were found in her dress. Thus, he had no choice but to report her crime to the Duchess so that you could be properly punished. Upon seeing the maid beg for forgiveness, the protagonist couldn't help but show her acting skills. She knew that this woman was a criminal for stealing from her. Yet the hero knew very well that her shamelessness didn't even come close to her sister's. Only then did she notice the weird emblem on the dress of the maid. She realized that this lady belonged to the temple and shouldn't be serving under the Duchess, as the knight asked the children to return inside, marking the end of their field trip to the outside. Once inside, she asked the boy about this incident, so he explained how this was the typical behavior from those who are from the temple. Kibrin revealed that they always try to cause problems in order to anger the Duchess. This made the protagonist think that the huge involvement of the temple in the imprisonment of the boy in the original novel was the reason he wanted to take his revenge on them, as well as his parents. Despite never finishing the entire book, the protagonist always knew that Kibrin, the main villain of the story, would die a tragic death. And seeing how the main character of the book and the temple were the ones destined to win at the end, she began to think that she was playing for the losing side. Yet, Cheria knew very well that it was now too late to regret her decision. Seeing how the boy regretted expressing his dislike of the temple to her, the heroine began to pat him on the head. Her purpose was to reassure him. Cheria affirmed to Kibrin that he doesn't need to hide anything from her, as they were practically married at this point. The protagonist knew that her only option was to raise the little boy. Her hope was that he would one day turn into a kind gentleman. Thus, only one thing was left to do. Later that night, as the young master was sleeping peacefully, Cheria was at the window reflecting on her own thoughts. Her hands were filled with jewels. She was happy that the maid had made things easier for her by taking them off her dress. The main priority of the protagonist was now to make her soon-to-be husband escape this prison at all costs. Now in possession of the diamonds that were in her dress and the magic stone that was in the kitchen lantern, the girl was now certain that she could break the window. According to the novel, there exist two types of magic stones, the first being the red one that is dropped by monsters, and the second being their blue synthetic copy crafted by mages that explodes when broken. Her plan was to use these items to break the window and access the terrace outside. Cheria didn't plan to evade this prison tonight, but to slowly create the perfect escape route. She was certain that her plan wouldn't be uncovered, as this room was rarely visited by maids. She then decided to calm herself down. While thinking about how the little boy shouldn't be raised in such a horrible place, she finally hit the stone with the diamond. One day, as it was decreed that Kibrin needed to stay inside for his own safety, the parents didn't know what to say. In the end, the mother reassured her child that everything would turn out all right. But one day, upon hearing his own father claim him to be a burden on their family, Kibrin felt deeply saddened. Due to this, the boy labeled himself as a monster. Despite his best efforts to block out his scales, new ones kept growing back. Kibrin began to think that he was the real danger to the outside. One day, as he was finally ready to see the outside, right before he could even step out, the crying Duchess asked him to be a little more patient. On that day, the child did his best to hide his immense sadness, when suddenly he woke up from this nightmare after hearing a loud sound. He began to panic, as he couldn't find Cheria next to him, only to notice something in horror. Upon seeing the girl at the window, he could only focus on her bruised hands. The boy was now worried. Kibrin demanded an explanation. So Cheria revealed how she had broken the window in order to let him enjoy sunlight and fresh air. But as you cheerfully continued to list the many advantages of her action, the girl was left intrigued as the boy pointed out how she seemed in pain. Kibrin gently grabbed the hands of his promised wife and began to cry upon seeing her injured. The girl tried to claim that she could take care of herself, only to be shocked as he asked to take a look at the injury. Seeing how anxious and worried he seemed, the heroine couldn't resist, and with that, she finally accepted. Cheria claimed that Kibrin doesn't have to force himself to see her ugly wound, yet he affirmed that it doesn't bother him. And so after focusing for a small moment, the cursed child began to use his powers. Cheria was left quite shocked. She was unable to believe what was happening to her hands, as her injury was now disappearing. But upon seeing the boy in pain as more scales began to grow on his face, she was left horrified and urged him to stop, only for him to keep going. In the end, Cheria's hands were fully healed. She was shocked to see that Kibrin possessed healing powers, unlike in the novel. The girl then asked the boy about when his powers first manifested, yet he wasn't quite sure. In this world where healing magic was quite precious, Cheria's sister ascended to sainthood for being a healer. Cheria found it rather disappointing that Kibrin's magic didn't heal his own scars, only for him to affirm that he was feeling no pain. And so when the girl asked him how he had gotten them, he claimed that they were punishment for being a cursed child. Cheria burst out at him for speaking of himself like that, claiming that she wouldn't like him if he were a monster. Kibrin found her to be rather strange and asked her if others also labeled her as a monster. In front of such cuteness, the heroine had no choice but to lie and claim that she was, leaving the boy overjoyed. She was surprised to see him so fond of this fact, only for him to apologize for his awful reaction and go to bed. With that, the little girl claimed that she would join him a little later before wishing him good night. Our protagonist was rather strange. Unlike in the novel, the boy possesses healing magic and has no ill intentions towards his family. Seeing this, she realized that there was some sort of backstory that wasn't mentioned in the novel. After hearing about the theft, the lady revealed that she decided to be more wary from now on. Upon seeing this, Cheria was left baffled, as she didn't expect the Duchess to pay them a visit. The lady then asked the maids to get rid of the dresses she had previously ordered, and so as she asked the little one about her opinion, she was left clueless. So the lady explained that she was referring to the dresses as she asked the girl if she would need help dressing them. Cheria affirmed that she could, while wondering why the Duchess was being so nice to her. Suddenly, the boy came rushing to his mother, only to fall face first to the ground. At that moment, the mother was frightened for her child, only to then restrain herself at the last moment. Cheria rushed to check on him as the lady walked away. The protagonist was left intrigued. She had just witnessed a genuine motherly reaction from the Duchess. This made her doubt even more that there was a soft story in the novel that she wasn't aware of. Thus, she decided to test her theory. With that, the little girl invited the Duchess over for a cup of tea, and she even called her mother. This greatly shocked the blonde lady. At that moment, the maids claimed that it would harm the Duchess to stay in this place longer. Cheria found it odd that maids were dictating the actions of their lady. And so as those two kept ordering the Duchess around, the protagonist began to think that they were related to those of yesterday, seeing how they belonged to the temple as well. In the end, the Duchess made her choice and accepted the invitation of the little girl. Later on, in front of the cup of tea, the Duchess, upon taking the first sip, claimed that it tasted awful, but upon learning that it was made by her son, she compared it to a beneficial medicine. With that, Cheria was now certain that her first impression of the lady was wrong. In the original work, this woman was written as the average villain who despised her child. But after today, it felt more like this lady was trying to deny the obvious truth. This wasn't even the only issue at hand. The maids from the temple were affirming to their lady that her presence here would impact her child negatively in a desperate attempt to make her exit the room. The Duchess decided to take one big sip in order to finish her entire cup before leaving. She stated that the only way for Cheria to survive was to be quick-witted, and that in this place, she had no reliable friends. The lady was then left shocked as the child referred to her as mother once again while thanking her for the advice. And with that being said, the Duchess finally made her exit. Once the door closed, Kibrin, after hearing the words of his mother, affirmed to Cheria that he would always be her friend, leaving her grateful. As our heroine asked the boy if his mother would truly be visiting them regularly from now on, he happily confirmed. Seeing this, she asked him if he enjoys spending time with the Duchess, to which he replied with a smile. Cheria found it rather adorable, as Kibrin affirmed that he also enjoys her company, for fear of her getting jealous. Cheria was now certain that this world wasn't fully identical to the one in the novel, and decided to observe the anomalies even further tomorrow when the Duchess pays them a visit. Yet, as the next day arrived, a maid affirmed to the children that the lady wouldn't be visiting them today. Seeing this, Cheria demanded an explanation. Despite the maid claiming that this was the consequence of the lady ignoring the benevolence of the temple, and that they needed to purify the mansion, Cheria realized that the Duchess was under threat. She then decided to ask for the reason behind the purification, and before the maid could even reply, Kibrin explained that every place he set foot into needed regular purification, seeing how corruptive his presence was. And as he added that this was the only way to keep his parents safe, the maid confirmed. But just as she was about to grab the little boy for the sake of the purification, the protagonist quickly slapped her hand away. Seeing this, the adult immediately called out the child for having an inflated ego as a result of being the sister of a saintess and the future lady of this house. But as the protagonist claimed that she was the one with an inflated ego after hiding behind the temple, the maid began to scream at her. Cheria was having none of it. The protagonist claimed her to be a fraud with no real holy power. In front of the truth, the maid was left speechless. Our heroine's character, despite her weaknesses, possessed abilities of her own. In the novel, Cheria had a condition that basically made her allergic to holy power, with her sister's power being an exception, as they were of the same blood. Seeing how nothing happened when the maid approached her, Cheria could safely assume that this woman was nothing special. With that, one detail became crystal clear for our heroine. The people of the temple, who were the first to claim her future husband was a mistake of nature, were in fact using him to keep his ducal parents on a leash. With that being said, Cheria asked Kibrin to leave the room with her. Seeing how the story never spoke about the temple sending agents to keep the Duke and his wife from seeing their child, she began to realize that the novel wasn't as reliable as she had expected. Cheria then expressed how she dislikes the envoys of the temple, only for the boy to claim that this was a shared feeling. As Kibrin pointed out how his parents once promised him to stay by his side, regardless of how the world sees him, Cheria realized that after the intervention of the temple, the Duke and Duchess broke their promise. Our protagonist knew very well that Kibrin had to escape this mansion in order to have a healthy life. Yet evasion wasn't an option, as the two of them were too young to go far on their own. Only then did the heroine realize that Kibrin's parents also wanted to live with him. Cheria asked Kibrin if he wished to escape this place. Despite his hesitation, the boy affirmed that he did and asked the girl if she had a plan. Cheria replied with a smile and declared that they need to take an enormous risk. That very night, Cheria made sure that she and Kibrin were the only ones here and that all escape routes were fully prepared. Her fake scenario was also finished. While sleeping, a mysterious fire suddenly ignites in the kitchen of the snake's den. Upon waking up in panic, she and Kibrin would jump out of the room's window in order to escape. Cheria's scenario to cover her arson was immaculate, yet only one issue remained at hand. In order for her story to be credible, she and her partner needed to jump from the second floor. But as she began to doubt if they would be able to actually land safely, Kibrin arrived. According to him, everything was now in place. He had successfully arranged the blue magic stones and the diamonds so that the second would shatter the first at the pull of the rope. With that, Cheria asked Kibrin to give her the rope in order to execute the risky part. Now was the time for our heroes to execute their plan. After gathering her courage, Cheria finally pulled out the rope. This allowed the diamond to collide with the magic stones. Just like that, the fire was finally started. After successfully committing arson, the satisfied mastermind affirmed to her promise that they needed to escape at once. Cheria would escape first in order to catch Kibrin with the blanket. Yet as she descended down the rope, the protagonist couldn't help but be frightened. Cheria, who didn't expect their room to be so high, did her best in order to remain calm. Suddenly, our heroine slipped and fell down the rope. But just as she thought that she was about to meet her demise, magic was suddenly activated. Just like that, Cheria miraculously landed safely. And just as she began to wonder about how she managed to reach the ground unharmed, she was suddenly startled by Kibrin, who performed a perfect landing. She then tried to recompose herself while wondering if both the hero and villain in this novel were skillful since they were young. Suddenly, droplets of water hit the girl's head. Thankfully, rain began to pour on the mansion on fire. With that, she asked Kibrin if they would be separated, seeing how she had set the Duke's mansion on fire. Upon hearing this, Kibrin's expression became gloomy, as he quietly affirmed that he would strictly forbid their separation from happening. Only then did a carriage come rushing into the scene. The mother quickly opened the door, fearing for the safety of her child. The maid tried to stop her from approaching the flames, yet the mother screamed at her before running towards her child. With that, the heroine urged the boy to rush to his mother. And just like that, Kibrin ran towards the Duchess. Suddenly, Cheria felt herself shielded from the rain. A man she had never seen before, holding an umbrella, stood behind her. And while he asked her if she was harmed, the protagonist realized that he was a smoker from his smell. Combining this with the fact that he was missing an arm, Cheria immediately realized that this man was Kibrin's other parent. This individual was the father of Kibrin, Duke Kibrin Nektarian. Despite the fact that he ruled the buried Dark City and was the youngest master swordsman ever, the Duke never got a significant role in the novel. Rumor has it that this man would have been unstoppable if he hadn't lost his arm, and that his wife, Winter, was the real head of his family. According to the novel, the Duke lost his right arm in a ritual at the temple. The man missing an arm then handed the umbrella to the heroine. But just as she began to think of how Kibrin's parents were much more different than their counterparts in the novel, the Duke suddenly picked her up. After accidentally hitting the man with the spike of the umbrella, the protagonist was left horrified and begged for forgiveness, only for him to remain calm. Cheria was baffled by this reaction. But just as she began to think that she needed to stay far away from the Duke, she noticed Kibrin's mother apologizing to him as he claimed to be unharmed. With that, the heroine demanded to be put down. As soon as the girl set foot on the ground, she rushed to her beloved with the umbrella, leaving the kind, handicapped person alone in the rain. After shielding him from the rain, Cheria stated to Kibrin that she doesn't want to see him get sick. He tried to claim that he was okay, yet the protagonist affirmed that he didn't need to hide his weakness from her and that he was always free to let his worries melt on her arms. Seeing how he didn't understand the metaphor, she asked him to lean on her shoulder. Kibrin couldn't help but blush. And just like that, the plan of our heroine went exactly as she had expected it. After a small while, the Duke affirmed to his wife that they needed to leave. Yet, Winter didn't respond. Yet upon hearing the protagonist address her as Mother, the Duchess urged the girl not to refer to her as such. Cheria asked the lady why she didn't ask them about the cause of the fire. Winter explained that she didn't adopt Cheria, as she simply bought her from her father, and that she would hear her story later, before urging her to get into the carriage. Once inside, the protagonist decided to look at the burning mansion before asking if the Duchess would be coming as well. So her husband revealed, while pulling out a cigar, how the Duchess was moving in a separate carriage. As the closer she would be to their child, the worse he would get. Only then did he remember that there were children in the carriage. Thus, he placed the cigar away and explained that this might be a lie from the temple that mocked his family. The Duke also affirmed that they couldn't scratch the option that this was reality. The father explained that they just couldn't take the risk and endanger the life of their child, claiming that choosing safety doesn't necessarily mean that they are going for the right choice. With that, Cheria once left, unable to uncover the true personality of the Duke. Yet this didn't surprise her, as he was now a man in the flesh instead of a novel character. Upon approaching the residence, the eyes of the little girl were filled with amazement. In front of her was now a giant, sumptuous mansion. You quickly notice her reaction and realize that she had a weak spot for architecture. Thus, he asked the driver to slow down so she could get a better view. After arriving, the man explained to the children that they would be leaving the capital as soon as possible. He explained that by taking his child from the snakes, he had broken his deal with the temple. According to him, the temple agreed to help treat his son, yet in exchange, this one must remain confined alone, and he and his wife must stay in the capital under their watch. Cheria Mayol suddenly filled with anger, as it was also explained that the temple wanted to see how cruel Kibrin was by offering him a tribute. She quickly realized that she was, in fact, the tribute in question. As in the original novel, Cheria was labeled as Kibrin's toy. The protagonist quickly got angry at this novel while asking the Duke for the reason he was telling her so much. Yet upon seeing the one himself, not knowing why he told her, our heroine was left more and more intrigued. As he claimed that she couldn't possibly fully understand, the protagonist was reminded that she was currently in the body of a child. With that, she asked if the Duke's next destination would be his domain and if she could come along, which he didn't have a problem with. As soon as he finished getting the little lady down, did you offer a helping hand to his son, only for this one to ignore it and get down on his own? Upon seeing this, Cheria was now certain that Kibrin had a bad relationship with his father. At that moment, the courage of the Duchess arrived. She then ordered one of her servants, named Mera, to go help Cheria with her bath. The little girl then heard the adults talking about how the Pope would have never sent them his saint for help. Cheria knew very well that even if he did, one would have probably turned a blind eye to their problem. In the novel, the main character would only use her power when it pleased her. At some point, the Pope stopped trying to convince her, and even the main lead, who was the Crown Prince, was forced to back for her help. To top it all off, Cheria wasn't sure that holy magic would recognize the scales of her promise as some kind of illness. Later on, as she was taken to the washroom, she began to think of how this story claimed adult Kibrin to have normal skin. This made her wonder about how he could have possibly shaken them off if it wasn't for the power of her sister, while hoping that they would vanish with time. While bathing, Mera claimed that the little lady must be feeling cold. The woman was then horrified upon seeing that the little girl barely had any meat on her bones. Mera apologized for having been absent in time of need, claiming that only those of the temple were allowed inside the snake's den. Cheria was shocked to see the maid showing genuine concern and realized that she must be aware of how she was bought by the Duke's family. Cheria then thought of the many reasons why one would despise her, and then realized that she was a full-on criminal, while the maid thanked her for what she had done for Kibrin. Mera then affirmed that she shall always be with our protagonist from now on, and urged her to eat her fill in order to grow healthily. This was a shock for Cheria, as it was the first time someone in this world showed her so much kindness. And upon hearing how the maid wanted to bring her some hot chocolate, she was now certain that this woman was an angel. Later on, Mera explained to the girl that this would be her last night sleeping in Kibrin's room, as she would get her own chambers. With that being said, the maid went to bring the children their hot chocolate. Cheria couldn't be more pleased. Meanwhile, Kibrin was left overexcited, as he had finally returned home. Kibrin affirmed that Cheria was like a miracle worker, seeing how he wouldn't have to return to the snake's den. But just as she was about to explain that what she did was criminal, upon seeing the innocence in his eyes, she decided to roll along with it. Yet as Kibrin stated, she was amazing for starting a fire in the first place. Cheria realized how odd it was, as no one had asked them about the cause of the fire. This was truly intriguing, as they should be getting bombarded by questions by now. Cheria was now baffled, having a hard time believing that her crime would be without consequences. With that, she affirmed to the boy that they needed to go to bed, while thinking about how it was still too early to analyze the situation. And while Kibrin was feeling as energetic as ever, Cheria was left exhausted after everything that had happened until now. Seeing how the boy was refusing to sleep, the heroine decided to tell him a story, leaving him excited. Under the grace of the moonlight, Cheria began to think about what tale she should unveil to Kibrin. In the end, she decided to tell him the story of a little ant. Kibrin was intrigued as the girl claimed that the ant's workday was 17 hours long. Cheria then began to cry as she explained that all the overwork the ant had done wasn't justly paid in the end, and that no one treated her seriously due to her being young. And so, as she slowly slid into her slumber while telling the tale, Kibrin claimed that he wished for the end to have a peaceful next life. In the end, Cheria gave in to her exhaustion. She tried to remember her past self, yet everything was foggy and blurry. And just like that, the protagonist realized that she had forgotten her own name. As the next day dawned on the mansion, Cheria woke up feeling weird in her own skin. Kibrin immediately went to greet her. As the girl stated that she fell asleep while telling him the story, it didn't take her long to realize that he had hated it based on his reaction. Kibrin then revealed to Cheria that the Duchess wanted to see her. Her first thought was that it had something to do with last night. Upon setting foot on the ground, the protagonist suddenly felt weird. Seeing how weak she was feeling, she asked her for promised support in order to walk. Upon descending the stairs, Cheria realized that the Duchess had some company. Seeing how there were people from the temple in the house, the girl quickly realized that she was feeling weak due to the presence of nearby holy energy. The envoy of the temple asked the Duchess if she truly wished to go against the will of the temple. He affirmed that by doing so, she would be forcing them to remove all the maids they had provided, and that she needed to make Kibrin exit the capital before nightfall. The priest was particularly annoyed, as the lady asked him if there was anything else he wished to say. Thus, the envoys claimed that she must not have compassion for all the citizens that her son would kill, seeing how she was an ignorant foreigner. Hearing this, the Duchess claimed that she was at least aware of how merciful the deity of this country was. But as she claimed that his mercy was being shown by how he allows such buffoons to serve him, the priests were greatly offended. She then stated that they should stop wasting their energy on empty words and leave her place at once, as they were delaying the departure that they had requested. And just like that, the envoys of the church left the mansion, filled with anger. After that, despite her best efforts to hide it, the overwhelming anger of the Duchess was clearly visible. Seeing this, Cheria decided to approach the lady who had asked for her. The Duchess explained to the girl that she needed to finish all of her affairs in the capital, if she had any, as they would be departing from it with a chance of never returning. Cheria had nothing in particular to do in the capital, yet she asked the lady of the house for permission to see her garden. The Duchess found this request rather odd, as according to her, everyone was free to roam their own home as they pleased. With that, the protagonist was left amazed. And as the Duchess made her leave, Cheria began to realize how much the novel didn't do this sweet character justice, seeing how easily she accepted her as a member of the family. She then noticed that Kibrin was acting oddly, so he revealed how he was trying to memorize the faces of the priests. Cheria found it adorable that Kibrin wanted to give them a scolding session when older, but as he revealed that he wanted to wipe them from the face of the earth, her reaction quickly changed. Cheria affirmed to the little angel that his reaction was exaggerated, seeing how she was doing everything to set him on the right path. Cheria explained that only catastrophes would follow if Kibrin sullies his hand with the blood of the priests. Yet upon hearing him state that he overheard their wish to see his mother dead, the protagonist was left scandalized. Thus, she began to give Kibrin advice on how to pull off the perfect murder, only to quickly remember that she was the voice of reason and affirm that murder was bad. Cheria realized that she must always be wary of Kibrin's actions, despite him being a child, as she asked him to guide her to the garden. Kibrin recommended using the little time they had left to go see her family. But seeing how she couldn't reveal how the Duke literally bought her, she claimed that she would rather stay with him, which greatly pleased the boy. And so, as Kibrin offered to guide her to the garden, Cheria couldn't help but find him adorable. Yet as soon as she stepped out of the doorway, Cheria suddenly felt ill. Something wasn't right, as her dizziness should have disappeared with the departure of the priest. And yet, Cheria wasn't feeling well despite the fact that she urged Kibrin not to alert anyone. She began to pray that this was but a cold, in fear of the ducal family abandoning her in case the problem was much worse. In the end, the protagonist fainted, leaving the boy to scream in horror. As soon as she opened up her eyes, Cheria saw the Duchess in front of her. And just like that, our protagonist woke up startled. Only then did she remember that she had suddenly lost consciousness on her way to see the garden. The concerned Cheria asked about her promise, so the Duchess revealed she had sent him to his chambers. Cheria found this action to be logical, as the boy must have been quite shocked after witnessing her faint, despite not knowing what caused her to collapse. After looking at the expression of the Duchess, she began to fear the worst and that she won't be taken to the duchy. But just as our heroine began to plan her next step, the Duchess apologized, catching her by surprise. The Duchess claimed that she had forgotten that not all children were as strong as hers before dropping all excuses and affirming that she would be tending to Cheria's needs. Cheria, who was supposed to be treated as a toy and who feared being left behind by the ducal family, felt an overwhelming sense of relief upon hearing the apology of the Duchess. The Duchess then introduced the protagonist to Elena, who was their family's personal medic. Cheria asked Elena about her condition and was left horrified upon hearing the Duchess claim that her condition was critical and that she only had a few months left to live. With that, our protagonist was less anxious. In the novel, Cheria's life ends with her murder at 17. The story described this character as someone as beautiful as the Saintess, yet always seemed gloomy, which made her wonder how she survived this long. With that, the Duchess began to think of a solution, as this child could very much die on her way to the duchy. Fearing being left in the capital, Cheria screamed that she could travel the distance, only for the Duchess to shush her in order to think in peace. In the end, she decreed that they would cure Cheria in 3 days and ordered the medic to take care of her until the return of the Viscountess in order to make Mevelik more patient. Elena, who tried to list the many reasons why this would be impossible, as they were pressured by the temple, and the girl needed at least a month of heavy eating to recover, upon receiving the side-eye of the Duchess, decided to obey her command without further discussion. Cheria was shocked to see the temple meddling in the family's affairs once again, and was shocked to see their stay at the capital extended for her sake. Cheria refused to be a burden, and as she tried to affirm that she was fine, the Duchess claimed that she must be hungry and offered to go dine together in the hall. Elena then decided to go explain Cheria's condition to Kibrin, and as she revealed that she would ask him about Cheria's favorite dishes, she realized that no one was paying attention to her opinion. But just as the heroine was lost in her own thoughts, she was suddenly picked up. The Duchess felt nostalgic upon picking up the girl who weighed as much as her son when he was 6 years old. Cheria tried to ask to be put down, yet once again the Duchess paid no attention to her words. Suddenly, Kibrin came in, rushing to Cheria. As she tried to reassure him that she was fine now, the boy began to beg her not to head to the pearly gates, leaving her and his mother completely baffled. As Cheria began to wonder how Elena broke the news to the boy, for him to act as such, this one revealed that Kibrin was eavesdropping on their conversation. This left the girl quite shocked, as in this crowded mansion, it should have been impossible for the little boy to listen to their conversation without being noticed and sent back to his room. Even so, this wasn't the main issue that the girl was facing. Cheria was certain that it would be impossible for her to eat all of the food present on the table, while the rest cheered her up. Seeing how the Duchess seemed to want this, Cheria took a good look at the appetizing soup in front of her, and after having a taste, she claimed it to be delicious. With that being said, Elena and Kibrin urged her to try the steak next. After having tasted every plate presented on the table, the girl had eaten her fill. She was then left baffled, as Elena claimed that she needed to slowly increase her food portions for the sake of her recovery. The medic then handed the girl some weird-looking pills in order to improve her condition. Kibrin tried to claim that she won't be able to enjoy such delicious meals in the afterlife. Cheria found this treatment to be over the top, as they were treating her like a terminally ill patient when a balanced diet and some good sleep would be the best medicine. With that being said, Cheria revealed her wish to see the garden, so the Duchess decided to come along, claiming that she would have her tea there. At the end of the day, when the children went to bed, Cheria thought about how the Duchess had watched over her while she was out in the garden, despite all the responsibilities that she must have had. With that, she pointed out to Kibrin how amazing his mother truly was. Cheria had now realized that she had misjudged the lady at first, who had only called her a toy in front of the maids from the temple. Kibrin claimed that he was deeply fond of her mother before stating that he felt the same about Cheria in order not to make her jealous. Yet as she asked him about his bond with his father, the boy went silent. Only then did he reveal out of nowhere that he has good hearing abilities. Kibrin claimed that upon hearing his mother discuss the critical condition of Cheria with Elena, he tried to heal her using his holy magic, and yet his efforts turned out to be ineffective. As Kibrin expressed his desire to help, Cheria affirmed that he was already doing enough. And as she used that one time, he covered her with the blanket at night. Kibrin suddenly had an idea. Just like that, the boy gave the entire blanket to the girl. Cheria stated that they should share it, yet Kibrin refused, claiming that all he wants is to see her get well soon. In front of such nobility, the protagonist was left speechless. In the end, the adorable villain made her promise to recover quickly. In front of countless appetizing plates, the feeble little girl was left speechless. Cheria, who was presented with all of this, couldn't possibly eat everything. That day, Cheria woke up to find Kibrin was gone, and instead found a monstrous breakfast that Mara had prepared because she didn't know what she liked. As Mara reminded her that she needed to take her meds after her meal, the little girl realized that she was expected to eat everything. Cheria, who felt stuffed just by looking at the table, claimed that she would eat later, yet the maid insisted, as it was crucial for her recovery. In the end, Mara gave her a giant plate of eggs, claiming it to be one bite. With that, Mara gave the little lady a spoonful of the plate. She then began to cheer her on as she kept feeding her with a smile. Yet upon reaching the last bite, Cheria felt disgusted by the food. And just like that, the protagonist began to run away from the overflowing kindness of the maid. Mara immediately went after her. Suddenly, our hero bumped into someone, but just as she was about to fall, this person caught her. This man was none other than the Duke, who stopped reeking of the smell of tobacco for some reason. At that moment, Mara, who was holding a plate, finally caught on to the little lady. As this one begged her to finish her plate, the Duke finally understood the situation. And so, he dismissed the maid. Cheria felt sorry for putting the kind maid into this situation. As the Duke explained that Cheria wasn't forced to eat, she claimed that she did her best for Mara, who prepared an entire feast for her sake. So the Duke revealed that Mara wouldn't have felt better if she knew that Cheria became sick because of all of this food. Only then did she realize where she was. Upon seeing the beautiful desk, as well as the rest of the decor that had good taste, the girl realized that she was in the office of the Duchess. Suddenly, the Duke got all serious and decided to ask Cheria a question that left her worried. The Duke wanted to know why Cheria refers to him by using his title, while his wife gets to be called Mother. Such a question was rather unexpected for the girl, as she didn't know how to answer. Thus, she decided to give a response that upset the Duke even more. In the end, the man claimed that he wishes Cheria to refer to him using a specific term that one uses for people he is close with, while giving her precise hints. And with that being said, Cheria agreed to refer to him using the Korean term that coldly refers to a middle-aged father. The Duke, who wasn't even in his 30s, felt offended and devastated. Thus, he affirms to the girl that he was actually younger than his wife, which surprised the protagonist. But just as the Duke was about to talk about how she should refer to him, Cheria noticed Kibrin in the garden. As Cheria asked to go see the Duke's son, this one was shocked to see that he didn't creep her out. And upon hearing her claim that Kibrin wasn't a scary boy, the father couldn't help but smile. And so with that being said, he allowed her to go see him, but urged her to be careful on the way. At that moment, Cheria realized something important. The Duke might have wanted her to call him father. Even so, she wasn't completely sure and decided to put her assumption to the test at the right time. Cheria then rushed to open the door in order to join Kibrin in the garden. At first, she didn't see the boy, only to suddenly hear him talk with someone. Cheria hid behind a tree and listened to Kibrin claim that he was happy that this someone was shedding his skin and affirmed that he didn't have to feed him any longer. This made the protagonist realize that Kibrin never told her what he used to eat before she arrived. At that moment, the little boy noticed her. Cheria had forgotten that Kibrin had a good ear while he explained that he was talking with his shy friend who had just left. Upon seeing the hole, Cheria realized that the friend in question was an animal, clarifying that it was all right, as Kibrin feared that she would find him odd. Cheria then asked Kibrin if he was upset by the fact that he wouldn't be able to see his friend once in the duchy, so he explained that he would have many more in the forest and garden to console him. And as he revealed that he was forbidden from entering the forest, the girl was greatly confused. Her confusion quickly turned into anger as soon as she heard the boy claim that it was because people labeled him as a monster. Yet Kibrin affirmed that he doesn't mind it, as he would be in the company of Cheria and the Duchess. At that moment, the heroine made the boy promise to always tell her about his worries so that she could take him to any place he desired. And so, upon hearing this, Kibrin decided to ask about her family. Hearing this question come from the little boy, Cheria was left quite shocked, as she didn't know how to answer. On one hand, there were her horrible parents, who only saw her as a tool. On the other hand, there was her monster of a sister, who was labeled as a villain even in the original story. Also, she couldn't forget about the county that was corrupted to its core. Her family was our heroine's Achilles' heel. She knew very well that one day her parents would grovel at her feet and ask for her favors, which greatly irritated her. For this reason, she couldn't find an adequate way to tell her tale to the innocent little boy. Kibrin interpreted her silence as a desire to keep her privacy, so she explained how she despised her birth family. Cheria revealed that her parents sold her off to the Duke, as she didn't possess divine powers like her sister. With that, she began to question if revealing this much was okay and if she should tell the boy more. Yet, Kibrin affirmed that this wasn't her backstory. And just as Cheria was about to ask the boy what he meant, Mara came rushing to her. Cheria was surprised. As Kibrin offered to help her stand up, the little girl gave him her hand. Yet to her shock, he grabbed her by the waist and lifted her off the ground with great ease. In the magic of the moment, Cheria realized how ridiculous that was, as the boy placed her back on the ground. The protagonist was stunned, as no 10-year-old should possess that kind of strength. With that being said, Mara apologized to the little lady. The maid claimed that she didn't want to force Cheria to eat her food, and that she was only doing her best to help her recover her strength. Cheria saw how much Mara regretted her own action, and realized that someone as pure as this maid shouldn't have to apologize to someone who set a building on fire, and clarified to Mara that she isn't to blame. Cheria expressed how grateful she was for all of her efforts, leaving the maid flattered. Mara then thanked the little lady for her kind words, and with that being settled, she decided to show the heroine something interesting. Later on, inside the mansion, one of the rooms was wide and well decorated. Cheria, who saw the bed in the middle, realized that she was in her new chambers. She then affirmed to Mara that she loves her new room. Cheria was extremely happy, as this chamber wasn't her usual dark attic filled with tools. Mara was horrified upon seeing how excited the girl was to see her new room insect-free. The maid affirmed that no child should sleep in the place that the little girl was describing, as she began to think about all the horrible things that her birth family had made her go through. Cheria realized that she had revealed too much and claimed that her past life wasn't as bad as it sounded. Only then did she hug her. Mara embraced the little girl and assured her that she would live a sweet life in the duchy with her always by her side. As Mara praised her for enduring so much and affirmed that she won't have to suffer anymore, the protagonist couldn't help but feel weird. She knew that she wasn't the real Cheria and that the backstory she told everyone wasn't truly hers. And yet for some reason, the protagonist was now crying. She was now crying the tears that should have been spilled by the real Cheria as she expressed genuine gratitude to Mara for her warm words. That night, Cheria lay alone in bed thinking about the odd emotions she had felt. Seeing how she was beginning to think like the character and remember her past, the heroine realized that her mind was merging with Cheria's. The protagonist then realized that she had completely forgotten her real appearance, but perfectly remembers the events of the novel. The girl was unable to see the bigger picture, which is why she decided to focus on what she could control. Cheria went to her suitcase. She then decided to empty it out. From it, a gold coin fell and began to roll on the ground. This was the only thing that Cheria managed to steal from her old family, and she decided to use it in order to purchase gifts. The new family of our heroine showed her pure love and affection, which is why she wanted to express her gratitude towards them. At first, the girl planned to use her novel knowledge to help them make the right investment and predict which family would rebel, yet no one would believe the words of a child. Thus, she decided to make them a gift that should be in the power of a child. The next day, Cheria rushed to the Duchess, who asked her to stop running inside. Winter then asked the child about what she had to say. So this one expressed her desire to go out to the capital. The Duchess wasn't sure about letting a sick child go out, so Cheria affirmed that she was well rested and that she had already taken her meds. Thus, after quickly analyzing the child, the Duchess allowed her to go, but affirmed that she must be escorted by a knight, leaving her grateful. And as Cheria rushed to get ready, the lady reminded her not to run while inside. Cheria was now fully geared up for her little adventure. At the gates of the mansion, she noticed a carriage waiting for her arrival. The assigned knight patiently awaited the orders of the young lady. On her way to the city, the little lady was lost in her thoughts. Her assigned knight, who was named Caesar, seemed like a very boring man. Despite the fact that this man looked like a high-ranked knight, Cheria was certain that the family of the Duke wouldn't deploy such an important person to escort her. Cheria then looked outside the window and began to wonder about how Kibrin was doing. The girl truly wished that her promised one could have come along. The capital seemed very lively, and the merchants were everywhere. The little lady was amazed by how lively this place seems. Yet upon realizing that this spot sparked a sudden feeling of nostalgia within her, the protagonist realized that her character had visited it in the past. She was certain to have visited this very location in the past. Only then did Cheria spot a magnificent bracelet on sale. Cheria remembered how she once desired this article and rushed to buy it. The old merchant recommended buying this item in pairs, and as she claimed that this would bring her good luck, Cheria was shocked to see that the lady was using merchant tactics on a child. With that, she decided to think for a moment. The old lady interpreted her silence as a refusal to conduct affairs, yet the girl knew that money wasn't a problem for her. Thus, Cheria shocked the merchant by pulling out her gold coin before asking for 3 of her bracelets. With that being said, the girl decided to put on the bracelet, and upon trying it on, Cheria was completely hypnotized by its charming appearance. In the past, despite deeply desiring it, Cheria didn't have the courage to ask her parents for it. This greatly intrigued the protagonist, as this bracelet that was her character's wish filled her with joy, which made her certain that she was slowly becoming her. Cheria then asked the merchant if she was the one to craft this bracelet, only for this one to reveal that it was made by her grandchild. With that, she handed the little girl her change, which turned out to be a huge bag of coins. Seeing how heavy it was, she had no choice but to hand the bag to the knight. Cheria then decided to visit the inner district, as she was hoping to find some fancy gifts for the Duke and Duchess. Once in the inner district, Cheria found herself surrounded by nobles and expensive articles. But as she began to wonder about what present she should purchase, the protagonist noticed something intriguing. The atmosphere of the district suddenly changed as the people recognized Caesar as a knight of the Duke based on his uniform. Cheria wasn't very surprised, as nobles were certain to immediately recognize the color of the Duke. Suddenly, an item caught her attention. Cheria found herself in front of a cute teddy bear. She immediately began to picture the adorable Kibrin, who would be greatly pleased by this gift. Yet as she asked the salesman about it, this one was startled and affirmed that his place was closed. As she expressed how odd this was, as it was still noon, the man affirmed once again that they were closed. This reaction greatly intrigued our protagonist. She then spotted 2 ladies nearby, gossiping, only for them to be startled as soon as they noticed her gaze. With that being said, Cheria realized that the ducal family was unwelcome in this part of the market. Seeing this, Cheria decided to leave with her dignity, fearing being thrown out of the district. With that, she expressed her desire to Caesar to return home. In the end, the little girl was unable to purchase a present for the ducal family in the inner district. Yet as she began to wonder if she would be able to find a suitable gift, Cheria spotted a bakery nearby. She decided to purchase snacks, thinking that the baker wouldn't drive them out, seeing how many clients he had. Back at the ducal residence, the desserts were way too healthy and lacked the satisfactory cream and sugar. In the end, she decided to purchase a cake that reminded her of her promise. And with that being said, she finally left the bakery. As she began to think of a gift for the Duke and Duchess, Cheria asked Caesar about the time. Upon hearing that it was now 1 p.m, Cheria was greatly shocked, as she now had no choice but to go back to the mansion. On the way back home, the girl began to think in silence. She didn't expect her gift hunt to be such a difficult quest, and was certain that she wouldn't get any results if she went back shopping. At that moment, Cheria finally realized that the Duke and Duchess, who were known for their wealth, wouldn't be amazed by anything that money could buy. And as she began to think of how presents needed to be meaningful, the girl finally got an idea. She decided to consult the knight about it. Cheria asked him whether or not the Duke and Duchess would appreciate a handmade gift. After thinking for some time, Caesar claimed that his master should appreciate this sort of gift. Hearing this greatly pleased the heroine, and with that being said, she decided to put her craftsmanship skills to good use. As soon as the little lady got back home, she rushed to greet Kibrin. The boy was happy to see her return. Kibrin then revealed how he had been informed of her little tour outside the house. So she revealed how she went out in order to make a purchase. With that being said, she gave the boy his gift. Cheria claimed that she purchased it after seeing how much the adorable pastry resembled Kibrin. Hearing this, the boy asked the protagonist if she truly found something similar to him adorable, and as he heard her confirm, Kibrin felt deeply flattered. With that being said, Cheria claimed that the bear wanted to be treated with delicacy. Yet as soon as the boy tried to take a bite, the bear that resembled him began to bleed. Seeing this, Kibrin assumed that Cheria wanted him to feel what committing a murder felt like, yet she affirmed that it wasn't the case. Later on, as nothing was left from the bear's body, Cheria was still shocked that the delicious treat was almost mistaken for a horrible life lesson about death. Yet she decided not to pay attention to this detail any longer. With that being said, Cheria gave Kibrin his next gift. Unlike her older sister, who was revered for her holy power, Cheria spent most of her childhood locked in an attic. While in confinement, the girl taught herself to create decorations for the place in order to kill her boredom. Cheria affirmed to the boy that she could only afford to craft him a present, while promising to buy him something better once they were adults. Yet, upon receiving the gift, the boy affirmed that he loved it. Kibrin even went so far as to promise to take good care of it for the rest of his life, which Cheria considered taking it too far. Cheria then explained that Kibrin was free to wear it a few times before throwing it away, and that she wouldn't mind it. So Kibrin decided to reveal some important info about his father, who, despite speaking those same words, felt greatly offended afterwards. Speaking of the Duke, Cheria began to wonder if he and his wife would be upset if their gift was slightly delayed, as it wasn't completed yet. Shortly after, Cheria went to see the Duchess. This one asked her for the reason she was late, so the girl explained how she had to see Kibrin first in order to give him his present. Cheria then revealed that she wanted to give her one as well, but couldn't find anything worthy of the Duchess. Winter was happy to see that Cheria thought about gifting her something. The girl revealed that in the end, she could only buy some bracelets and that she would gift the lady something later on. The protagonist was then left quite shocked, as the Duchess stated that she wouldn't mind taking one of her bracelets as a gift. With that being said, Cheria began to think that this cheap jewelry might be more valuable than anything she could craft before handing it to the lady, who didn't find it ugly. As soon as the Duchess tried it on, the protagonist was stunned by her natural beauty, which even made the cheap bracelet seem like an expensive jewel. Cheria tried to claim that they now had matching bracelets, yet the Duchess asked her not to get excited because they were similar. And while Cheria thought of how Duchess Winter was as cold as ever, someone arrived at the scene. This was none other than the Duke, who didn't expect to see Cheria in the garden with Winter. Cheria explained that she had bought some presents and came here to give one to the Duchess. The Duke suddenly got excited and began to ask about what she bought him. Cheria was left alerted, as the Duke was the type to hold long grudges according to his son. And so, as she declared that she didn't get him one yet, the man was greatly disappointed. Seeing this, Cheria got scared and promised to give the one-armed man his present tomorrow. With that being said, the Duke left the scene while claiming that he had faith in her. Seeing how worried the little girl seemed that her gift would displease the Lord, the Duchess pointed out how much her husband seemed to like her. The Duchess reassured the little girl that the Duke would be grateful for whatever gift she decided to grant him, before pointing out that there was nothing in the world she could get him that he couldn't buy for himself. After thinking for a short while, Cheria realized that the Duchess was right. And so, as the next day dawned on the mansion, the gift was ready. Cheria, who put her heart and soul into it, was praying for the Duke to like it. With that being said, she knocked on the door while hoping that the Duchess wasn't wrong. The Duke opened the door and was surprised to see the little girl in front of him. Thus, he asked her if there was a problem. Cheria then handed over the present that she had promised while referring to him as father. The Duke took the gift and revealed how he had expected her not to get him something. With that, the man lets out a genuine smile and expresses his gratitude towards the little girl. Upon seeing this, Cheria couldn't help but smile back. That night, after Cheria went to bed, she found herself unable to sleep. Thus, she decided to get out of bed. Cheria theorized that the mix of excitement and anxiety that she felt because they would be heading to the duchy the next day was the reason she couldn't shut her eyes. Cheria, who felt an itch in her chest, was unable to tell if the medic was spouting praises or insults when explaining that she got better. At that moment, the girl noticed something intriguing. A beautiful figure stood alone in the garden. This was none other than the Duchess. This one then noticed the little lady, and both expressed how surprised they were to see the other awake. In the end, it turned out that Cheria and the Duchess were unable to sleep. Cheria then noticed the item in the lady's hand and realized that this was what made her chest hurt, as it was reeking with holy power. The Duchess decided to reveal that her son had chosen to stay in solitary confinement once at the duchy. This meant that their family home would become another snake's den. Hearing this, Cheria decided to bring up her sister, claiming that it would be for the best to see her before leaving the capital. Cheria claimed that her sister might be able to cure Kibrin's condition. She wanted to use her blood relationship with the Saintess in order to help the ducal family. The Duchess revealed that, according to the father of the girl, she had launched herself at her sister. Yet Cheria knew that this wasn't what it seemed. The Duchess decided to reveal that this thought had once occurred to them, yet the family's decision was firm. The Duke and his wife refused to use Cheria in order to get to her sister, as they were determined to be better than her biological parents. The Duchess then revealed how they wanted to forcibly bring the Saintess to their home, only for her child to claim that it would be useless, as according to him, only a monster like him could cure his condition. At that moment, Cheria recalled a time when Kibrin asked her if she was a monster like him. Upon recalling her answer, she was left quite baffled, as she didn't understand what he truly meant that day. Thus, as the lady claimed that she wasn't sure of what her son meant, Cheria affirmed that she was just as clueless. Yet in a surge of anger, the Duchess affirmed that hunting monsters might be better than dealing with the hypocrites that infested the temple. She affirmed that if the mysterious seal on Kibrin disappears, the temple's reputation will suffer greatly, and Cheria will no longer have to beg her sister for anything. Upon hearing this, a new feeling invaded the chest of the young girl. In this world, only the members of the ducal house treated her like a real person. It was a sad reality that in the novel, they would all be slain by Kibrin, who would fall into madness. The Duchess found it odd, as her words should have made Cheria happier. Thus, she decided to check her temperature. This luminous presence overwhelmed the protagonist. The Duchess, who's a fallen royal and whose son was labeled as a monster, was the real strength of the house, as she was a perfect marriage of kindness and strength. Cheria then held the hand of the Duchess, thanked her for accepting her into the family, and promised an unwavering loyalty to their house. Hearing this greatly shocked the Duchess. She expressed how surprised she was and stated that Cheria might ask to enter another house later on. Yet the protagonist clarified that she enjoys being with the Duchess and a part of her family. Cheria even claimed the Duchess to be the most beautiful maiden she had ever laid eyes on. These words reminded the Duchess of her husband, and with that, she asked Cheria to remain this entertaining once at the duchy. The dawn of the departure day had finally shone. Everyone was bracing themselves for the ducal family to leave. Only then did a loud presence enter the hall. As the protagonist asked about this individual, Elena realized that Cheria had never seen this lady before. Thus, she introduced her as Viscountess Rose, who served as Kibrin's nurse before her confinement and rushed here upon hearing about his release. She claimed that only Rose would travel alone at night for the sake of Kibrin, despite being a delicate lady. Upon hearing this, Cheria was deeply shocked, and not for the reason the medic had assumed. Only then did their eyes meet. Cheria had a hard time believing that this person was considered a tender maiden. Yet, she refrained from making assumptions. Cheria didn't want to judge Viscountess Rose based on her manly features. Yet, despite her best efforts, Cheria was unable to see her as a maiden. Only then did the lady in question greet the medic. Elena thanked Rose for arriving so quickly, and this one revealed how she had always considered the ducal family as her own. The medic then asked the protagonist to greet the Viscountess, and with that, our heroine introduced herself to the manly lady while thinking about how Rose must look different in the eyes of Elena. When this person claimed that it was a delight to finally meet Cheria, this one couldn't help but feel suspicious. Suddenly, the eyes of this person turned red. Cheria found it rather odd, as in the novel, there was no mention of someone called Viscountess Rose. And so as the Viscountess introduced herself to the girl, this one was left horrified. Nowhere in the novel was a character named Rose ever mentioned, yet she refused to believe that this man-like being was some minor role. Cheria began to question if Rose was even human, seeing how her eyes had changed color. She then quickly realized that if saints exist in this world, so do monsters, as the medic placed her and Kirito in her care. Rose claimed that he looks forward to it. Cheria began to wonder why she was the only one who could see this woman as a man. Seeing this, the protagonist decided to run away, as people would grow suspicious if they saw her reaction towards the Viscountess, while claiming that she needed to fetch something from her room. And so, as the little lady got away, Rose looked at her with eyes filled with bad intentions. Once safe, Cheria began to fear that Rose would spend most of her time with her and Kibrin, seeing how she was a nanny. But just as she was lost in her thoughts, trying to think about the solution, someone startled her from behind, only for this person to turn out to be the Duke. The man whom she referred to using his formal title was here to give her a gift, as Elena told him where she was, and with that being said, he granted it to her as a present. The Duke wanted to express gratitude for the gift the girl had made him in his own way. The thankful little girl asked for the key that opens the chest, only to be left shocked upon learning that it would be crafted next year. Cheria decided to retain her composure in front of the Duke, claiming that she would wait patiently. And the Duke teasingly pointed out how it seemed for a second that the negative girl was unhappy with his gift, meaning that the girl couldn't truly hide her emotions. The Duke then decided to abort a serious matter. He claimed that the girls should alert someone immediately if they ever feel dizzy on their way to the duchy. One asked if his domain was far. The male confirmed, claiming that they needed to travel by carriage before using warp. The Duke decided to warn her that if a body as feeble as hers were to enter warp, it would probably fall in. Even so, Cheria affirmed that she had now recovered, and while she was certain that her travel would be a piece of cake, the Duke wasn't so sure about it. Shortly after, on their way to the duchy, the little girl felt incredibly ill. This left Elena greatly concerned, seeing how much she was sweating. Cheria affirmed that she was fine, despite it being her first time traveling to such a far place. Yet travel wasn't the only reason behind this uneasy feeling, as Rose had been eyeing her for a while. And upon seeing the creature smile, the protagonist was greatly irritated. While the heroine was annoyed by Rose's smirk, the medic proposed to take a small break before resuming their way. Cherryfeld was relieved upon learning that, according to the orders of the Duchess, the carriages were to be stopped at once if any of the kids felt dizzy. And with that being said, Cherry and Kirito decided to go outside together. Once outside, the protagonist decided to ask the boy her question. She claimed that it concerned the Viscountess. At first, she wanted to tell him about how she looked like a man to her and how her eye color changed. She also wants me to ask about the reason she kept eyeing her. Yet Cheria knew very well that she couldn't burst out at a little boy like that and asked about purple lightly. After thinking for some time, Kibrin described Rose as an incompetent crybaby that he felt bad for. Cheria didn't expect such an answer. This made the protagonist realize that the boy also sees her as a delicate maiden, while she perceives herself as a manly fighter. Kibrin then asked Cheria if she had a problem with the nanny, yet she was convinced that it was the other way around. The protagonist revealed how she felt awkward about her role, but would try to get to know her better, which greatly pleased the young master. And just like that, nothing else was to be done. A little while later, while the house of the Duke was still on their way, Cheria began regretting not listening to the warning of the Duke, seeing how dizzy she felt. Only then did someone approach her. This person was none other than Viscountess Rose. The manly lady urged her not to move while dizzy, seeing how she risked tripping and falling. Cheria was shocked by the sudden kindness, yet still thanked her for her advice. As Rose kept on giving her advice, she suddenly began to look around before getting close in order to whisper in her ear. Cheria was greatly shocked as Rose urged her to get out of the dual family once her purpose was achieved. A dark sense of fear invaded the mind of the little girl, as this one claimed to only want to take care of Kibrin. And just like that, the protagonist realized that Rose was truly an enemy. Upon arriving at the duchy, the condition of the protagonist had gotten so bad that she was immediately put in bed. Cheria thinks that the words of the nanny had made things worse for her. And while she was thankful not to have thrown up, Kibrin decided to check on her. The heroine reassured him that she was getting better, and that she only got dizzy because it was her first time warping before asking him if his first experience was also the same. So in order not to upset her even further, he lied, claiming that his first time was also the same. If not for the feeling of nausea, Cheria would have loved exploring the duchy. The manor was called the Crescent Moon Castle, and the forest around it was known as the New Moon Forest. The forest was well known for containing countless species of monsters, which is why specific squads are often deployed to slay them and take their magic stones. Cheria remembered how the Duchess once revealed to her how she collected monsters for the sake of her son. With that being said, the heroine decided to bring out the time she had told the boy she was a monster. Yet he urged her not to talk about it, promising to keep it a secret. The boy affirms that he won't tell a single soul so that she won't end up in confinement like him. At first, he wanted to tell him the truth until she saw his reaction. Seeing this, she decided to play along. Now, Cheria couldn't care less about the truth and decided to thank the young man, as she only wanted to see him happy. Kibrin then decided to bring up something Rose once said. According to her, a monster could only be healed by someone of his own kind. Kibrin claimed that he finally understood what she meant that day. On the other hand, Cheria found it rather suspicious. As the next day dawned on the duchy, numerous plates were presented in front of the young lady. Mera was happy to see that the little girl had gained a better appetite after leaving the capital. Cheria claimed that she wanted to recover as soon as possible in order to explore this place. Recovering your strength would also allow her to foil the mysterious plan of Rose. The maid then explained that Elena also recommended her daily walks. Cheria was once left greatly shocked upon learning that it was the Viscountess who would be charged for walking her around the castle. The little girl was now horrified. She then claimed that she was to see the Duchess after finishing her meal. Mara was intrigued as the little girl claimed that this was an order from the Duchess. She claimed that no one had told her to bring the young lady along, which was only natural, as the little girl was currently lying. Only then did the protagonist realize what the maid had said. And while Cheria was thinking about how it was the first time she was referred to as a young lady, the Duchess claimed that she was expecting her. This shocked the little girl, seeing how she didn't announce her arrival as the Duchess asked her to take a seat. Cheria immediately seated herself. The Duchess revealed that they will close the gates of the castle for a short time and that her son would start taking his lessons as a successor. As you also revealed how the Emperor asked her to make it seem like she cares for the opinion of the temple, Cheria began to wonder why the Duchess was telling her so much. Yet upon hearing the Duchess claim that she was but a powerless child and that the temple was at fault for the fire that broke out, Cheria was left startled. The Duchess claimed that the fire was an accident and that she brought her son and the one who saved him to the duchy afterwards. Upon hearing, she had been eager for a reason to act and get her son out of his prison. She was certain that she would have acted even in the original story, like how she decided to cover the arson. The Duchess then claimed that because of the Emperor, their problems were quickly settled. She then decided to show the child a document where she and Kibrin share the family name, leaving her quite shocked. The Duchess affirmed that the child wasn't a stranger any longer and that she wasn't the offspring of the Count any longer, but the spouse of her 10-year-old. She then added that they would have their wedding once they become adults. Despite the fact that underage nobles could be wedded, they were only allowed to have moderate marriages, which wouldn't be fit for Kibrin and Cheria. The protagonist was left greatly shocked. Her expression suddenly got gloomy. She asked the Duchess if this decision was influenced by her father. Cheria wanted to know why the ducal family rushed to her under their name. According to her, the Count was disgusted by the fact that she had his family name. Thus, the day he sold her, she had predicted that he would demand hers to be changed. Cheria then asked the Duchess if her reasoning was on point, and after a short silence, the lady finally decided to answer. The Duchess claimed that no one had forced her to do this, and that she changed the name of the girl out of her own free will. Upon hearing this, the protagonist couldn't help but smile. Cheria realized that Kibrin's expression when he tries to lift them from his mother. Thus, she deeply thanked her for her kind words, only for the Duchess to claim that she was simply telling the truth. With that, the lady decided to make her leave. She then left Cheria horrified, as she asked her to go join the Viscountess. Seeing how the only reason the child came to the Duchess was to escape Rose, she asked for permission to come along. Cheria claimed that new places are scary and that she would be reassured to be with Duchess Winter. And so as the lady began to think about it, Cheria was hoping to delay her time with the Viscountess until she made a full recovery. In the end, seeing how Cheria would feel safe beside her, the Duchess allowed her to come, but urged her not to make a fuss, leaving her overjoyed. Later on, it was explained to the lady how the monsters' attacks had increased and how they needed more men, as well as the presence of the Duke. Seeing how the monsters were numerous with different powers, it would be a good opportunity to get red magic stones. Red stones were far more precious than their synthetic counterpart and were much more versatile. And thus, as the grown-ups kept on talking about the affairs of the duchy, Cheria, who was happy to learn more about the Duke's domain, first became exhausted, wondering if this was due to the effects of the warp. Only then did she notice the child sleeping next to her. Thus, she decided to tenderly cover her. Later on, as Cheria finally opened her eyes, she was left rather confused, as she was now in the presence of the Duke. Cheria realized that she had fallen asleep, while the Duke claimed that he did his best in order not to wake her up. At that moment, the girl noticed that it was on her shoulder. She recognized the item with a delightful scent as the cape of the Duchess. The Duke then suddenly offered her a present. Cheria asked the man if he had gone out. And upon learning that he was enjoying himself, the protagonist found this displeasing, given how hard the Duchess had been working in the meantime. She tried to ask him about where he went, yet the Duke only gave shady answers. The man then explained that this castle was far more interesting than their house in the capital, and that Cheria should try to explore it. Hearing this, she asked if she was allowed to roam it alone, fearing getting stuck with Rose, so the Duke confirmed. Yet the man decided to hold her off before she could make her leave. He began scribbling something on a piece of paper. In the end, it turned out to be a map of the castle. The Duke then began by pointing her to the room where his son takes his lessons, followed by the chamber where artifacts are stored. Yet, as he claimed that she would like the exhibition hall as it was filled with precious items, the protagonist realized that her money-loving side had been discovered. Now with the map in hand, the little girl decided to go explore the castle. The Duke asked her to return in time for dinner. Cheria then began following the map in order to roam the long corridors. She decided to go see Kibrin, doing his lessons first. Our heroine was slightly worried, as abusive teachers were very common in this kind of novel. If the tutor turns out to be an abuser, Cheria judged it wise to report him to the Duchess. Inside the room, someone wanted to express how thankful he was. Cheria grew intrigued upon overhearing that someone called Nina had gotten better after taking the herbs recommended by Kibrin. and upon hearing that the friend of this individual wanted to catch a beast rarer than Nina, who came to him, she realized that it was an animal. But upon hearing this, the person grew intrigued by the actions of the young master. The heroine was left confused as well. Kibrin rushed to open the door for Cheria. And so, as she reminded herself that Kibrin had an excellent ear, Cheria affirmed that she had a good reason to eavesdrop. At that moment, she was approached by the other person in the room. The man claimed the fiancée of his young master to be quite lovely. With that, he introduced himself as Baron Daniel Dawson, the history teacher of Kibrin. As she introduced herself to him, the lady began to think of how kind he seemed, only to then notice something intriguing. Upon noticing the Chevy close to the instructor, as well as his worn-out shoes, the first thought that crossed the little girl's mind was that Kibrin had been beating his teacher. Yet she decided to quickly shake off this irrational thought while wondering why the noble seemed so poor. Yet, as she began to imagine the many reasons behind his being broke, she was startled by the nanny asking her to get out of her way. Cheria immediately obeyed. And with that being said, the Viscountess seated herself while giving our protagonist the usual dark glare. Even so, the protagonist was determined not to show any fear. Seeing how the nanny had arrived, the teacher decided to leave and excused himself. But before leaving, the Baron affirmed that it was a pleasure to meet the young lady. The young master then asked Cheria to sit with them, seeing how there was still some time before the next class. Kibrin then explained to her that Nina was in fact a leopard, and that, according to the Baron, she made a miraculous recovery after being on the brink of death, which made him greatly happy. The boy then revealed that despite his desire to go check on her, he was unable to do so as he had to stay inside all the time. With that, Cheria was saddened as she was reminded that Kibrin was to stay confined in his family home as well. She also recalled how he was friends with the animals back in the capital and wondered if this bond extended to Nina. Seeing this, she offered to go check on her for him. Yet upon hearing how the protagonist wanted to go see the leopard for the sake of the young master, Rose got jealous and offered to go see Nina with our protagonist. This reaction greatly intrigued the young lady, as it seemed that the Viscount didn't want to see her getting close to the young master. Kibrin then offered Cheria a cookie. She accepted the biscuit while thinking about whether Rose was serious or not. Yet, seeing how they would be escorted, Cheria was certain that Rose wouldn't make her move. The Viscountess kept giving her dark glares. Thus, Cheria asked her if there was any problem. At that moment, the Viscountess stood up, and just as the little girl was startled, this one decided to leave the room. Cheria asked why Rose was here in the first place, so Kibrin revealed how she was only here to see him. Winter covers the duchy faster than the capital. When asked if he was sensitive to cold, Kibrin got embarrassed and confirmed, which made him look adorable in the eyes of his lady. The boy then compared himself to a snake, seeing how sleepy the cold gets him. Yet Cheria affirmed that she couldn't care less about his reptile-like behavior. She even affirmed that if he were a serpent, he would be the most adorable one ever. Cheria likes to consider herself adorable, yet has no choice but to recognize him as the cutest of them all. After hearing this, Kibrin couldn't help but smile. Cheria immediately smiled back. She then decided to ask about his history lesson and asked to see what he wrote. Yet upon seeing the manuscript, she seemed rather amazed. The boy was quite intrigued upon seeing her pull out a sheet of paper. Cheria then compared the boy's handwriting to his father's. She was glad that Kibrin had inherited the handwriting of his mother, seeing how ugly his father's was. Kibrin then explained that the artifact room must have been redirected to another goal. He revealed that it was full of stone tablets. And as he explained that they were boring but precious, Cheria was left deeply intrigued. She proposed to go see them with the young master, but seeing how his next lesson was about to commence, she decided to make her leave. Later on, we see Cheria in front of a staircase. Despite the fact that the map pointed to this place as the storage room, she was shocked that no one had been posted to guard it. Only then did she notice something that caught her attention. The stone tablets that Kibrin had mentioned were here. The curious girl immediately went to check them out. Cheria then began to read what was written on the tablets. Yet unable to understand the meaning behind those words, she assumed that this was an encrypted message. And just as she began to think about how boring they seemed, someone suddenly addressed her. Only then did she notice this person behind her. The man introduced himself as the family's personal mage, Emil Serentium. He also revealed himself to be responsible for this chamber while executing a small magic trick. The girl introduced herself while thinking about how familiar this man seemed. Emil asked her to casually address him as he asked her if she had found anything she liked. Cheria decided to ask about the stone tablets. Emil claimed that they were unreadable old artifacts and that only gibberish was written on them, and even the mage tower stopped looking into them. This greatly shocked the protagonist, as she could perfectly read what was on the tablets. Emil then decided to point her towards something far more entertaining. He decided to show her an item that resembles jewelry. He offered her one in order to replace her ugly headband, and despite her claiming that it was a gift from the Duke, Emil claimed that it would create happiness for her and her entourage. And so, as the mage decided to continue the tour, Cheria could only think of the tablets, seeing how she was the only one who could read them. Later on, while wondering why she could even read them, Kibrin affirmed that this was due to their secret. At first, the girl was confused. Only then did she realize that the boy who claimed that he could read the tablets as well was referring to their monster secret. Yet Cheria, who knew that she was but a human, asked Kibrin if this was the language of monsters. Yet Kibrin clarified that he was unable to tell. It was understandable to see a genius like Kibrin understand the tablets of stone. Yet, our protagonist had no idea how she had gained this ability and assumed that it had something to do with her being from outside this realm. Cheria assumed that she must be able to read them due to the fact that she had reincarnated, and expressed how glad she was to see that the young master was also able to read them, as she had thought herself crazy. Kibrin claimed that he had been feeling the same about himself as well. He claimed that she had changed his life. Kibrin affirmed that Cheria's presence reassures him. Hearing these sweet words left the protagonist speechless. Cheria then affirmed that she was happy to have helped. Kibrin then explained that he was done with the lessons of the day and proposed to go enjoy dinner. 2 days had passed since then, and Cheria went to the domain of the Baron after getting his permission, as well as that of the Duchess. Yet, Cheria didn't expect to be sent to the barony with her +1 without any escorting knight. Viscountess Rose affirmed to the girl that she won't need protection as long as she is around, which the girl found odd coming from a nanny. As Rose claimed that the Duke and his wife would settle for anyone who would see their son as a human, Cheria realized that they were aware that this one wasn't the average maiden. Before departing, Kibrin tried his best to reassure the protagonist. Cheria was shocked to see the boy call Rose a good kid and ask if Rose was her real name. Kibrin claimed that this name was given to her by her adoptive mother, whom she promised not to cause any trouble. Upon remembering the words of the boy, Cheria decided to try to get close to Rose, seeing how she hadn't harmed her yet. And so, as she put on her cutest smile while claiming that she would be in her care, this one pissed her off by giving her the cold shoulder. Shortly after, the two ladies arrived at the domain of the Count. The girl descended from the luxurious carriage, and as soon as she set foot on the soil of the county, she was left utterly shocked, as the domain of this noble was but an ugly wooden cabin in the middle of nowhere. The Viscountess claimed that the Baron had spent a fortune, yet the startled lady didn't know what she was referring to. Cheria then realized that Rose was referring to the leopard. The beast was grand and magnificent and seemed to be in good condition. She then realized that the poor-looking Baron must be a big animal lover, seeing how well the creature seemed to be treated. After taking a look at the feline, Rose suggested leaving. Cheria claimed that they needed to give the Count his gift, so the Viscountess asked her if she truly wished to enter this hut. So the girl claimed that she was willing to do it for Kibrin, who would be disappointed if they returned after taking a small glimpse of the animal. And with that being said, she affirmed that Cheria was free to return alone as she headed towards the house of the Count. The Viscountess had no choice but to follow the child. Once inside, the Baron expressed his gratitude towards the girl for the tea leaves. He then went inside to fetch them some tea. As soon as the Baron left, Rose began to talk casually to Cheria, asking her if she truly wanted to drink the man's tea. The girl decided to do the same, claiming that 1 cup of tea couldn't possibly harm her. Cheria claimed that they needed to be exemplary guests for the sake of Kibrin, yet Rose was more worried about the sound of the ceiling. And as she expressed that she would be disgusted if these sounds were made by rats, Cheria began to think of how she should be the one acting like a rich girl instead of her. At that moment, the Baron arrived with the tea. He claimed it to be hot, which is why he asked his guest to drink it carefully. Cheria then asked about how Nina got wounded, so the Count revealed how she was attacked by a magical beast. Long ago, the Baron had helped the mother of the leopard give birth, so he claimed that she must have recalled his scent before crawling back to his home despite her injury. At first, he assumed that there was no hope left for Nina, yet with the help of the right angel, a miracle had truly happened. The Baron explained that after resorting to the herbs that Kibrin recommended, Nina was able to recover. He then affirmed that Nina would be restored to her full health after a couple of months. Cheria was then left horrified as Rose explained that monsters usually hunt humans instead of animals. And while the Baron reassured her that they were all safe under the protection of the Duke, Cheria was in fact worried that Rose was one of the monsters in disguise. The Baron then explained that Kibrin shared a bond with Nina, as well as most of the beasts. He then claimed that Kibrin would become a great Baron. But just as Rose was about to state that Kibrin might not be fit to rule, someone at the door suddenly screamed to the Count to let him enter. Having recognized his friend, the Baron rushed to the door. This person claimed that he had captured a beast rarer than the leopard. And while the intrigued little girl tried to analyze the creature, Rose was left startled. In an instant, she grabbed the child and affirmed that this creature was a magical beast. Cheria was horrified, as she was now in front of one of the so-called man-eating magic beasts. Rose explained that this monster was low-grade and would only show his true self in the presence of a competent human. And as she claimed that they were currently safe, seeing how it was just her and some inferior humans, Cheria realizes that this one doesn't consider herself human. The protagonist was still wondering why the nanny hated her and decided to ask her if the reason the monster was at these was because of her not being human. Rose then called out the little lady for speaking so casually, yet Cheria affirmed that he was the first to speak as such. As the Viscountess urged the girl to go away, This one couldn't take it any longer. Cheria demanded to know what Rose had against her. Rose affirmed that he wanted her out of the house of the Duke, and as Cheria tried to argue that she was officially married to Kibrin, Rose urged her to get a divorce. The nanny then decided to clarify that she was only speaking as such for her sake, but the protagonist had a hard time believing her. Only then did she remember that the nanny was perceived as a delicate maiden in the eyes of everyone else. Thus, she accused her of trying to foil her marriage in order to have Kibrin for herself. Rose felt utterly disgusted and affirmed that this was pure insanity. She then angrily affirmed that her role was that of a protector and even threatened to hurt the girl if she ever spouted this nonsense again. At that moment, someone entered the room holding what the Baron had asked for. The man was left horrified. He had immediately recognized the little rabbit as a magical beast. And so, as the room was thrown into panic, the Baron urged the Viscountess to get the child to the carriage. In a flash, Rose took the heroine and got away. Meanwhile, the Baron was left horrified by the monster. As Rose was trying to take the girl to safety, this one asked the nanny for the reason she didn't use the monster as an excuse to get rid of her. Yet upon hearing that Rose was scared of blood, Cheria found it ridiculous that she once considered her terrifying. Shortly after, Cheria was thrown inside the carriage. She then stopped Rose from getting out. Cheria claimed that getting out might be dangerous, so the nanny affirmed that the monster was incredibly weak. She claimed that it would only take 3 nights to take it down, which is why the man easily captured it. Yet Cheria knew very well that the Baron living in a wooden hut didn't have 3 men working under him. With that being said, she grabbed the manly lady by the arm and asked her to take care of the magical beast. In exchange for this favor, Cheria was willing to leave the ducal castle for an entire day. She also tried to explain that the young master was really fond of the weird Baron and that he would certainly be greatly saddened upon learning that he was harmed. Cheria asked Rose to fulfill her role as a guardian. With that being said, the nanny quickly freed her arm. The terrifying furball of doom was now running after the Baron's friend. Rose immediately braced herself. Cheria was left quite amazed, as this one launched a spell with a snap of her finger, and just like that, the green bunny suddenly evaporated. Cheria was confused. So Rose explained that she had teleported the beast away after realizing that Cheria wanted it dead. As she claimed that no child her age should desire to see blood, Cheria was left completely amazed. She grabbed the nanny by the hands and claimed her to be an amazing individual despite her bad mouth. The flattered Rose happily accepted the compliment. She claimed that the protagonist was truly courageous and that she didn't need to disappear for a day, making her realize that Rose was truly a kind child. As the day ended, Cheria returned to the ducal castle. She was welcomed by Mera and claimed that she had a fun day after being asked about it. Rose calmly analyzed the situation. No anomalies had occurred until now, which was a major issue. The nanny was certain that as soon as the seal of the young master breaks, Cheria would be the first one to fall at his hands. The seal on the boy's back was incredibly unstable and could crumble at any moment. The temple kept branding Kibrin as a monster, unknowingly downgrading the threat. The boy was a being of pure disaster, with no natural enemy capable of keeping him in check. Kibrin's true nature had many infamous titles that included fallen divinity and devilry. Rose began regretting having resorted to this curse. In the past, she had used a specific ritual in order to make the staff of the castle less fearful of the young master. She claimed that their fear shouldn't have been deleted. The best move would have been to forbid the boy from creating tender bonds with them and turn the castle into the second snake's den. Yet, now it was too late for the creature to regret its actions. As Rose looked at Cheria and Kibrin, laughing like normal children, she had no choice but to admit that the boy in front of her was truly a tender child. This fact was undeniable. Rose was urging Cheria to flee as soon as she could, as she was fully aware of the disasters that would unfold once the memory of Kibrin was fully restored. Shortly after, in the office of the Duchess, the Baron took the full blame for what happened, yet the Duchess claimed that no harm was done, seeing how Cheria was safe. As the lady claimed that the friend of the Baron would be judged for his carelessness after investigation, this one had no choice but to comply. The Duchess then pointed out how the Baron hasn't changed, seeing how he was still living alone in a poor hut with a beast. And while the Baron explained that the feline's name was Nina, the little girl wanted to talk about the horrible condition of his house. The Duchess then asked for the leopard to be brought to the castle. She revealed that her son was dying to see the feline, and that this would benefit it as well as the Baron. Daniel was overjoyed upon hearing this. And seeing how the Duchess allowed him to visit the beast whenever he pleased, the man fell to his knees as he expressed his deep gratitude to the duchy. At that moment, Cheria asked the Duchess what the term monsterizing meant. The Duchess explained how a chunk of Nina was eaten by the monster before correcting herself and affirming that the chunk was offered to the monster. Yet Cheria didn't quite understand. It was then explained to her how, in some cases, the one attacked by monsters would gain its abilities instead of losing his life, like Nina, who acquired a great vital force. This made Cheria realize why the friend of the Baron was seeking a beast rarer than the feline. One day later, the Baron brought the beast to the ducal castle. Kibrin was happy to see that Nina would always be by his side, as the beast immediately recognized her new master. Cheria couldn't help but smile as she gazed upon the young master and his furry friend. Sometime later, the snow of winter cloaked the duchy in white. After one last snip of his scissors, Kibrin had finished arranging the flower vase. Cheria thanked him for his assistance, seeing how bad she was at this, so Kibrin pointed out how she excelled in knot decoration. Cheria was hoping that her instructor would realize her lack of talent as soon as possible. Kibrin then mumbled that the harm had already been done before quickly shaking it off in front of his lady. Suddenly, the children heard noises from outside. Kibrin, with his incredible ear, revealed that the temple had sent them a letter, which greatly intrigued our heroine. Later that day, as the Duke and his wife were about to leave, Winter ordered the servants to keep the gates closed in their absence. Cheria asked the Duchess if she was going to the forest. The lady confirmed, as she revealed that there was a territorial war between the monsters at the nearby lake. Only then did she notice that the child's hands were injured. The Duchess got angry. She then demanded that the flower arrangement classes be suspended and claimed them to be a waste of time. Meanwhile, the father turned to his son. The Duke claimed that his child wasn't greatly affected by his leave, seeing how he had Cheria by his side, yet Kibrin simply replied with silence and a hateful look. With that being said, the Duke decided to go on his way. He affirmed that he won't be absent for long and that nothing bad should occur while he is away, as his son gave him a cold reply. As the Duke and Duchess left the castle, Cheria began to wonder if the temple that sent them a letter was making secret plots. Yet, she decided to pay it no mind, as they would remain safe as long as the gates remained closed. That night, Cheria suddenly felt sick. The girl, who didn't want to bother the medic at this hour, assumed that she had overeaten despite having grown used to big portions. Only then did she overhear two maids talking about outsiders, claiming that refusal to comply would anger the divine. Upon learning that the outsiders in question were high priests, Cheria finally understood why she was feeling ill. She then began to wonder why the temple had sent high priests, as they were far more powerful than the normal ones. Now, Cheria had to choose between regaining her room or heading to the top floor in order to flee the holy presence. Suddenly, Kibrin woke up from his sleep. As the boy claimed that he just woke up, Cheria affirmed that it was the same thing for her and urged him to get back to bed. The boy then paused for a second and then offered his wife to spend the night with him instead of going back to her room. Cheria thought that the boy's company would ease the pain and immediately accepted. Once in Kibrin's room, the boy wished the girl good night. Kibrin then gently touched his wife's cheek, claiming that she must be cold, seeing how red her nose seemed. At that moment, the pain suddenly stopped. As Cheria asked Kibrin if he had healed her, he asked her if she was in pain. Cheria explained that she had been struck with a stomachache, only for it to disappear in the presence of the young master. The protagonist then recalled that one time he healed her hands while they were still in the snake's den. Kibrin was happy to have helped. With that, he declared that he would stay by her side so that she wouldn't suffer through the night, as the two of them wished each other good night. As our heroine closed her eyes, she began to think of how the boy she should be raising was taking care of her needs. She then recalled his behavior back in the snake's den. Kibrin smiled rarely and constantly blamed himself for being an atrocity. Cheria was happy with how much he had progressed since. The protagonist went to sleep relieved, reassured that Kibrin was growing up healthy. The next day at the temple, a priest reported to the important girl that the duchy refused to welcome the two high priests they had sent. The young man then asked the saintess for help on behalf of the pope, which greatly offended her, seeing how he should be the one to come and ask her, though she agreed that it is rather intriguing that a weak child would thrive at the duchy. Thus, she urged the priests to carry her words to the pope. The saintess declared that she was worried for her sister and wanted to personally inspect her condition.